Welcome to the Sheridan Report. On the Gruely Truth Sports Network, the Sheridan Report is brought to you, of course, by MyBookie.Ag. To check out MyBookie.Ag and get up to a $1,000 cash bonus on your first deposit, go to thegruelytruth.com, click on the MyBookie.Ag banner at the top of the page. I am your co-host for the Sheridan Report, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, let me welcome in from the Sheridan Report, Bobby Sheridan. How you doing, Bobby?
Good morning, Mike. How are you doing? 11 o'clock here on the Pacific Coast, and in 10 minutes we've got to play. So let's get right into baseball.
Let's get to it.
Okay, MLB today. We're hoping to have a strong day. We kind of struggled a little bit. I thought our takes were good yesterday, but you know, it for most of the part didn't work out. But we'll get into that a little bit. But let's get a play released here. This is a game starting in 10 minutes at 11:10 Pacific, 2:10 Eastern. And the first play of the day is going to be the Kansas City Royals. The Royals are throwing out their ace today, Brad Keller, and I think he's going to be able to win this pitching matchup with Lucas Giolito, who's really struggled for the White Sox. And I think Kansas City will be able to have a lead here and protect it with their best pitcher on the mound. Keller was a Rookie of the Year candidate a year ago, and he's really started out the year right where he left off. He's had great outings. He's an ace. He's trying to stop a losing streak. He's facing a pitcher that's struggled. And I can see the line movement. And when I had it last night, Mike, it was even money, plus 100. The White Sox are going for the sweep, but Keller's gotten the money there. And
right now it's minus 120 on my bookie.
Isn't that crazy? I've got it minus 108. So I think definitely my bookie tends to favor some of the favorites, no doubt, especially in this smaller type deal. But I think what you can do is I've got a nice straight bet, but what I did do is I did tie it up into a couple parlays, one with one of our other straight bets and one with the first part of our three-teamer. So that's what I did personally. So Kansas City Royals. Now we go to the next game, and I'll go in order of when they start. These are my straight plays. So we'll go to the Mariners. Seattle's a home dog today, trying to avoid second straight sweep. They got swept by by Houston over the weekend, and that was a big series. Seattle's gotten off to the great start. They were 13-2, and Houston, of course, the big favorite to win that division going in. And Houston came in with a 6-game winning streak and left with a 9-game winning streak, and we were kind of on that. We predicted that, and Houston rode that right into Oakland last night, so they've got a 10-gamer now. But Seattle plays Cleveland, and, you know, life in the MLB is tough, Mike, because they come off getting swept by Houston, which, I mean, come on, Houston's a great team. They're a World Series candidate, and then what's their reward, you know, for that? You know, they start a new series. They're probably glad to see Houston go for now, but then they draw Trevor Bauer, and that was our game that we needed. We needed Bauer 2 nights ago, and he delivered for us. That was a great game. And when you start with Bauer and end with Hand, that's 2 all-star arms. Well, last night they had Bieber, who's, you know, a really good arm for them as well, second year, and had great numbers as a rookie last year, just as Keller did for Kansas City. And Cleveland got the win last night, back-to-back games, back-to-back saves for Hand. Well, here's this good spot for Seattle to break that. They're facing Carlos Carrasco, who he's a winning pitcher in his career, but he's gotten off to a horrendous start. And this is after they tried to unload him in the offseason. Cleveland had plans of kind of blowing things up a little bit, building up their farm system a little bit, getting some outfield help, and kind of changing the configuration of their team, which is starting pitching strong. So Carrasco has come in and really struggled. He's 1-2 with a high ERA, been hit hard. I've watched a couple of his starts on video, and I think this is a spot for Seattle, who's going to use the staff today. They're going to go ahead and use an opener and probably get through this game with 5 guys and try to get to the back end of their bullpen, maybe their top 2 arms at the back end with a lead, and I think they'll be able to. So Seattle is a strong play. And then finally, Mike, the last straight play of the day is one of our takes that really came through yesterday. The Giants, I mentioned that they won ball games at home, and they're really ready to play. They're playing very good baseball, albeit with an offense that doesn't generate a lot of runs, but they have really good starting pitching, and their bullpen's really, really good, and they have good team chemistry. And I predicted they would go on the road and get out of what used to be Pac-Bell Park, now called Oracle, and maybe swing the bats better on the road. You see that sometimes with teams, and it really came through last night. They gave Bochy a 64th birthday present, a 3-home-run game, which is not typical of San Francisco. So we were on that. We caught a $1.75 dog yesterday, and we're going to stay on San Francisco because they're going with Jeff Samardzija today. And Jeff Samardzija is kind of back to the past, but he's doing it in a different way. He doesn't throw 98 anymore, Mike. He throws more like 92, 93, but he cuts the ball and moves it. And that style of pitcher was real effective against Washington yesterday. That's what Rodriguez did. Pudge's son, Derek Rodriguez, did that type of stuff to Washington yesterday and shut them down. And Samardzija, with anything close to that effort, I think the Giants will get to Hellickson and score some runs again today. So the Giants at plus 119 right now on my site are another strong play, and that's at 4:05 Pacific. So there's your 3 straight plays, Mike.
Got a quick question from a listener on Twitter.
Sure.
Tony from Los Angeles wants to know what do you think of the Angels shots. He said where he's betting they're plus 120 to 125 with the Angels against the Rangers.
Well, I kind of didn't really consider that game. The Angels had beat them 3 out of 4 at Angel Stadium, outpitched them. And, the Angels, they scored, they did score some runs against Texas Angel Stadium, but, they've come in here and they really put up 2 poor performances offensively. And Texas has outpitched them and outplayed them. And it just looks to me, Lance Lynn, I watched that game. This is what I looked at. I first looked at, are the Angels a play for me at plus 118 trying to salvage a game here? Well, I don't really want much of Matt Harvey. Harvey kind of came in, him and Cahill, as veteran pitchers that had opportunities to kind of establish themselves as the aces of the staff. And Harvey had a little bit of an injury thing in the offseason. In the exhibition season, not major, just minor that set it. And then the Angels went ahead and started him right out of the gate, and he didn't pitch well at all. And I thought, well, maybe he wasn't quite ready to go. And then he comes back and still doesn't pitch that well. The stuff is there, but he's getting hit. So, in this spot, I didn't really trust Harvey enough with the Angels offense not really clicking these first couple games of the series. If you look at that Angel offense, they are struggling. They're one of the weaker hitting offenses in the league. I don't have numbers in front of me, but I just going by what I look at daily, that's not an offense I really want to back when I don't really have a lot of faith in my starting pitching. I do like their bullpen. But with that said, now we turn around and we look, can we put them in a 3-team parlay as we do, as I set up my deal every day? And, I didn't want to pull the trigger with Texas either. Lance Lynn, good fastball, good arm, journeyman pitcher, a good pitcher, been around a long time. What I didn't like last game against the Angels, and maybe he knew he had 2 starts, he went primarily with just the fastball. And he rode that pretty deep in the game. He went 6-7 innings against the Angels, and the Angels did win that ball game, but he was throwing 96, and he was throwing fastballs a huge amount of the time. Look for him to use a slider a lot more tonight, which has been in the past a real strikeout pitch for him. And I think that he'll have some success going to that. But I just didn't trust this game enough to actually use that. I found 3 other favorites I liked better for our parlay. So if you had to tie my hands and make me make a pick, I think I would take Texas in this game. I don't really want any part of the Angels.
All right, Bobby. Anything else, baseball?
Yeah, we got the 3-team parlay, Mike, and that's a big part of things. And what I did was I took Kansas City with the first part of this. Remember I told you the 3-team par is 3 solid favorites, the 3 best valued favorites. And so I took the Pirates in the first game. We have the Pirates, the Twins, and the Braves. That's our 3-teamer today, all favorites. And I took Kansas City and hooked them with the Pirates. And so that was one parlay I did once Kansas City kind of flipped over to the favorite. I did get, what I do is I'll bet. I tend to get the better of the lines, I would say maybe 60% of the time. So I'll make initial plays on the overnights. And the overnights, I'm capped at 250. So I put 250 on Kansas City, got plus 100. But now when I'm ready to make a more solid bet today, I don't want to lay 111, which is what it was earlier, or 108. So I put the extra money and I tied a few parlays up. So one of them I did was Kansas City to Pittsburgh, and that's the first game of our three-teamer. Then we got the Braves and Twins to finish that out. And so that $100, Mike, pays 433. So that was my favorite three-teamer. And it almost came through for me, even though we did not, and this is part of going back to yesterday, this is more like an oversight, an overview of how I look at things and how it can really help you. Mike, we didn't pick really well yesterday, the TSR. We lost both of our NBAs, a little bit unlucky with San Antonio, that's for sure, very unlucky, but we lost both the NBAs, and we only hit San Francisco, one of our 4 straight bets. But even on a bad day, if the Twins win yesterday and we hit that three-teamer, I bet that pretty strong, I would have only lost a little bit of money yesterday. As it was, I had a medium level loss. And so we were one game away, either the Twins or OKC, the way I set it up, from being just fine. And so what I took from that is, hey, we're not a good day picking, and I'm not worried about that. I know over years I'm going to pick the percent I need to pick. But setting up the bets is the other part of this and how you play it. And yesterday I came away positive. I played it right. I was one win away, which would have been the Twins and the Twins last night and the three-teamer, or OKC. So my point is the three-team parlay almost bailed us out yesterday. We had 2 wins, and we just couldn't get that third. But, that's how I like to use that. And the three-team parlay 2 nights ago when we mixed and matched with Cleveland and the Dodgers, that was good. So anyhow, that's our three-team parlay. And
all right.
Before we get into the other stuff,
yep, we're going to go ahead and take a commercial break, guys. We will be back to talk NHL and NBA in 1 minute and 12 seconds. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Mike Goodpasser from the Grueling Truth Sports Network, and I'm here with just one simple message. If you're watching the games, it's time to start making money. The Grueling Truth has recently partnered with MyBookie.Ag, an industry-leading sportsbook website, who reminds you that where you bet is just as important as who you're betting on. And that's why the Grueling Truth urges you to check out MyBookie.Ag. In addition to the usual thousands of odds, money lines, proposition bets, and futures offered on MyBookie.Ag daily, they also have in-game live betting and a mobile site that makes wagering on the go easier than ever. So join now and MyBookie will give you up to a free $1,000 cash bonus on your first deposit. Just enter promo code TGT50, that's TGT50, to take advantage of this offer. You can also go to thegruelingtruth.net, click the banner at the top of the page for MyBookie.Ag, and also get the same benefit and the same $1,000 free cash bonus on your first deposit. So visit MyBookie.Ag, courtesy of the Grueling Truth, and enjoy winning today. MyBookie.Ag. You play, you win, you get paid. All right, guys, we're back on the Sheridan Report with myself, Mike Goodpasser, and Bobby Sheridan. Bobby, we want to go NHL?
Let's go NHL, Mike. I want to kind of give you some props here because you're a humble guy, and so
I'm humble.
You may not mention it. You may not mention it.
No, I wouldn't mention it, but I don't want to jinx it.
And that's good, Mike, because you move on to the next day, and that's what it's about. But it's not about. But I do want to say the incredible job you've done in the NHL. You're 6-2 in the eight games that you've released on the air, and I bet it. I've been taking part in it. My son has, and I'm sure some of the listeners. And yesterday, you were 2-0, and you really had to take that. The Lightning were going to get swept, and if they weren't, they could come back and win the series. And Columbus listened to you. Great job on that, Mike. And that was great. And so they got the sweep, and then they took that to the Vegas Knights. That was your 2-teamer, and the Knights won easily last night. And you're looking like a genius in the NHL. Thanks for picking up TSR because we weren't very good yesterday.
All right, Al. It happens. When I look
what do you got today?
And when I look tonight, I'm going to take a shot with a 3-teamer, and I don't know. I think I'm going Calgary tonight. I think Calgary, Colorado, the goaltending worried me. Colorado took advantage of that. Calgary, I think, is going to win tonight. I think the Stars will take the Preds. And then the interesting game to me, and this is the one that I have a hard time with, is Boston and Toronto, which I know we've spent a lot of time on this series. And things don't normally dramatically change in a series. But tonight's Bruins lineup, I think, is going to look different than what it has in the past. And it seems to me that John Moore and Marcus Johansson both are game time decisions. And I think having Moore return would add a little stability to the blue line for the Bruins. And while the return of Johansson would give Bruce Cassidy, I almost went to boxing. There was a boxer named Bobby Cassidy in a day, and I was thinking Cassidy. At least I didn't say Butch Cassidy. But it'll give Bruce Cassidy.
It's ingrained in you, Mike.
Yeah, it'll give.
Ingrained in you.
I think it gives Bruce Cassidy a lot of options up front. If Johansson returns, I think it'll be interesting to see how he fits with Coyle and Heenan, or whatever the hell. I'm not good with foreigners' names. We know that. But I know who he is. I just don't say his name that well. And I think if that's how they choose to play it, Coyle has been the Bruins' best forward in this series. And I think the thing that the series comes down to right now is this. I think it's a little bit of a stretch to say this, but I think the Bruins have beaten themselves in the series. You could make that argument definitely, I think, in Game 3. Games 1 and 2, maybe not so much. But Game 3, when you think about the goals they allowed, they failed to clear on one goal. They lost a puck battle on goal 2 and a blown coverage on goal 3. And I think that you could look at this as a reason to be positive for the Bruins because you would think, that's easily correctable. On the other hand, with me, I'm going to think they're playing in Toronto. Their backs are more against the wall now than what they were the other night. So I'm going to go with the Maple Leafs to win this game. And I think they win this game like 4-2. But I think in the end, the Bruins have been beating themselves. But even when you say that, usually if you're beating yourself, a lot of times it has something to do with the way the other team's playing also. And I think the Maple Leafs, kind of like the Columbus Blue Jackets, for the first time this year, have chosen the playoffs to be what most people thought they would be all year. Lucas Weiss, who's listening in now, says Leafs in 6. And I know this, when I picked Leafs on this show to win the series, Lucas said it was nuts and actually sent me a private message, Lucas, where you said you thought the Bruins would take them in 4 or 5. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way I heard that. So I'm going to go tonight. I'm going to go Leafs, Stars, Flames.
So you've got a 3-teamer that would be Leafs are favored -125. The Stars are -125.
Well, actually, on mine, the Leafs, on my bookie, the Leafs are -115. The Stars are -125, and then the Flames are -115. You still get 3-1 on it, and good. The thing is this: I'll bet 3 favorites in a parlay because you usually get at least 3-1 odds. Now,
that's great.
And Lucas says he would never bet against the Leafs, but I am about to put out on Twitter the text that Lucas sent me when he thought they would lose in 5.
Well, hey, picking and betting against is different things. Lucas would never bet against, but maybe he picked. But one thing I will tell you, Toronto has, really kind of, I think, changed the opinion of a lot of Maple Leafs fans because they came out and they've done a great job. And the only thing I can lend on that is the 2 things that you said, Mike, is that adjustments in strategy pay off sometimes. Adjustments with lineup changes and personnel, and those are almost types of things that are desperation. You're trying something because what you're doing is not working. And so I think the Leafs have an opportunity here to win this series. I did mention on air that I thought the winner of Game 3 would win the series. So I think Toronto will win this series, and if they win tonight, I think it's over. It'll be 3-1. It won't be over yet, but I think tonight, in my mind, if they win it, it's over. I think they know it. They're going to go get it.
All right. So we got a little basketball too, and Lucas, I know, would want us to talk about the Raptors, but we're not going to. So go ahead.
Well, basketball, it's really been interesting. The underdogs come out of the gate in these playoffs, really, really strong, and we were on them right off the bat, and we had like 3 out of the first 4. We were on all of them, and we won straight up all of them even. And then the only other dog that's covered has been the Clippers, and we had that straight up. So the 4 dogs that have covered have won. and we've made a lot of money on those selections. Now, we gave back some of the money yesterday. The favorites came back and won and covered yesterday, and one of those wins, San Antonio is up 13, getting 7 in the third, and they've won the first 6 quarters over Denver. And then all of a sudden to have that thing collapse in the fourth and have it collapse the way it did was just really, really bad luck to not even cover. And it was all in the last 3 minutes. It was just kind of a crazy finish. You're very fortunate if you're a Denver bettor. But, all right, that takes us into today. Are the favorites going to continue that trend? We've got 2 things that are kind of going against each other today. Will the favorites continue because they've been coming back and winning now? The favorites are 8-4 overall in the 12 playoff games against the spread. But you've also got the zigzag theory working. And the zigzag theory, remember, is you take the opposite team. So the team that lost the previous game, or you come back and you bet the other team. That was 2-1 yesterday in those 3 games. Well, today, if you took the zigzag theory, you'd be on all the dogs. So are the favorites going to continue their run, or is the zigzag theory, which has been working, is that going to continue its run? And that's what you've got tonight. So I threw out the Detroit-Milwaukee game. I really have no interest in that series from a betting perspective. The Bucks are favored by 15, and they're going to sweep this series.
I don't think Detroit has any interest in that series either from watching Game 1.
Oh, man. So how do you take Detroit? But, then how do you lay 15 when that could blow up any number of ways in your face? So I just throw that game out. I think that's going to be a very least watched game because we've got the Pacers playing. That's a 5 o'clock start, or 8 on Eastern. But at 4 o'clock, 7 Eastern, we've got a really great matchup, Indiana-Boston. And here's my thoughts, and I have a top play here. And let me give you my thoughts. The Pacers, the way they're choosing and the way they're defending Boston is fine. They held Boston down, mid-80s, right? That's a winning game. But they can't score. They're having a hard time scoring against Boston, and I don't know what's going to change. And I've been doing a lot of reading, a lot of research on this, and I don't think they know what they're going to have to do. They're going to try. They're going to try some strategic moves tonight and to be able to free up some scoring from their guys that they need to score. But Boston just has an ability to defend them. And the reason I took Indiana in Game 1 was because Boston was without Smart.
You there?
It still didn't work, Mike, and I have a feeling it's not going to work for Indiana. So, we had the Pacers had the halftime lead that they let just totally get away in the second. They were blown out in the second half, and so where are we at in this game? I'm teasing the audience a little bit. I'm back to Boston. I have to flip here. I want to stay with the dog. I want to use the zigzag theory. I want to get money back on Indiana and believe in them, but I like their coach and I like some of their interior play, and I like the guts of Collison and Matthews, but they just don't have enough against Boston, and it became really obvious to me. And the thing about Boston is that Kyrie Irving is just such an X factor, and I uncovered something that I missed. He came to Boston last year, Mike, from Cleveland, and I had forgotten he did not play in the playoffs. He was out. And they caught fire, Boston did, and went all the way to the finals, the Eastern Conference Finals, with Rozier at guard. And he became a topic of, can they keep him? Can they maybe flip Kyrie because this guy's done such a great job? And, Kyrie is going to probably leave, but he's not going to leave without making his mark. He played tremendous in Game 1, and I don't think they're going to give up that home court advantage after that nice comeback. And I think Indiana's going to have a hard time scoring 100 points, and Boston can get there. So I'm going to go ahead and lay the 7.5. I think Boston's got another double-digit win here. And, I'll be holding my breath in the fourth quarter, if they're up 9. It just seems really hard to cover, but I'm hoping they're up 20. And, what are your thoughts on this game, Mike?
About the same. I think the Pacers either win or they get blown out.
Yeah, and I think they're going to get blown out. So, hey, I got Boston tonight. So let's talk a little bit about the last game too, because I'm not on this game. I almost was on this game, and I was almost on the Rockets. And Utah's problem again is scoring. You got both underdogs tonight that can't score against the favorites, and I really like that when the favorites defensively have an edge, and so I almost was on Houston, but I do have respect on enough with Utah that maybe tonight's will be a close game. But the thing about this is Utah, again, held way below their standard of scoring, and I still think the point guard matchup is tough. And Houston just shut down Mitchell and shut down Ingles, and that's 2/3 of Utah's offense. And, I just have a hard time landing on Utah. I decided not to give the points here. One thing I do want to mention, Quinn Snyder is happy with the way they chose to defend Harden, because it turns out that his shot selection forced him into those mid-range little floaters in the lane, which he was only 4 for 9 on. And he did not go to the line very much. And so they feel like having him go to his right and really giving him a lot of room and space, well, what it did was it gave up his ability to drive and then pass to the three-point shooters who they made 15 threes. And that was the difference in the game. So if Houston doesn't shoot the three well tonight, they may have a 5-point win. If they shoot the three ball again, they're going to win by 20 again. So I just left it alone.
All right.
Any thoughts there?
No.
You got any thoughts on that series?
I think that series, I think Houston ends that in 4, maybe 5 if Utah's lucky. I just think Houston's too good. Utah can't score.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're kind of on the same wavelength with those two series. So
yeah.
And the one
I expect 3 not very competitive games tonight.
Yeah. I can see that definitely. I think the Utah game could turn out competitive if Houston's not shooting the ball well.
Yeah. But what do we got for on this day, Bobby?
Okay, on this day, we're going to stick with basketball theme. It's NBA, it's the playoff time, and we're going to talk about one of the best to ever do it. Let's get your thoughts on Dr. J. Julius Erving, because on this day, 1987, the year, Mike, you and I both graduated high school, 1987, Julius Erving. Yeah, it was.
Julius, you know what, though? If you go to Walmart in Aurora, Indiana, you'll find, multiple people I went to school with in 1987, and I look significantly younger than they do. And that's always a good thing.
Good job, Mike.
Plus, I've got all my teeth, so most of them don't.
So do I.
And now let's just hope none of them listen to the show, because then I may not be allowed back in Walmart. And if I'm not allowed in Walmart, there's really nothing else to do around this part of the country.
You said it, not me. All right.
It's true.
1987, Julius Erving becomes the third NBA player to score 30,000 points. 1987.
Oh, I thought you were going to ask a question. All right. Julius Erving was maybe my favorite basketball player growing up, even more than Larry Bird. The thing about Erving that stands out to me is if you look at his stats, the 30,000 points is great, but he was one of only 6 players in NCAA basketball history to average 20 points and 20 rebounds.
Did not know that. Wow.
That's a lot of
I didn't know
points and a lot of
about
rebounds. I think it was, yeah, because I think he averaged I think in both his seasons combined, he averaged 26 points and 20 rebounds. And there's only been 6 players to average more than 20 points and 20 rebounds per game in NCAA men's basketball history. And then, of course, he gets to go to the ABA because the NBA made you go to school for 4 years at the time. And Lucas has a question for you in a minute, by the way. But okay. He ended up going to the ABA because the ABA instituted a hardship clause, which meant you could come out of school early. And he did. He got signed by the Virginia Squires. He played there for a couple of years. And then he moved on to the New York Nets. And the Nets were a really good team. They lost to the Pacers in the finals once or twice, I think. And the thing that stands out to me is I think the ABA, part of the reason why they got taken in by the NBA was the impact Dr. J had, because everybody wanted to see Dr. J. And when you look at it, you had the slam dunk contest. Actually, the 1976 ABA All-Star game, you had the slam dunk contest, And you also had the ABA Finals was on HBO, but that slam dunk contest, I think, was the first one that really garnered, you know, any really publicity in this country. And it was Dr. J against David Thompson, who was a great college player who played with the Denver Nuggets. And
Oh, yeah.
from there, the dunk contest kind of took off from there. And I think the dunk contest really took off like 1984 when in Denver again, Julius Erving, I think, upset everybody and won the dunk contest in 1984 even. And that was an older Erving that had been in the league for like 12 or 13 years. And the thing with Erving was he never could seem to get over the hump. And when you look at it, 1977, they lose in the finals to the Blazers in 6 games, and I think the Sixers were pretty decent favorites going into that. 78, 79, I think they lost in the conference semifinals and the conference finals. 1980, they lose to Magic Johnson in Game 6, where Magic Johnson plays center and scores 42.7 rebounds. 1981, the Sixers came up short. They lost in Game 7 after having a 3-1 lead against Boston. They lost Game 7 in the Garden by like a point. Dr. J misses a shot at the buzzer. They lose the game. 1982, they come back. Same situation, up 3-1. Celtics come back, tie the series 3-all. And you go to the Boston Garden for Game 7, and everybody thought, well, this is where the Celtics win again. But the Celtics came out and won that game, like 120-106. Andrew Toney played out of this world, and they basically broke their curse in Boston. They go to the finals again. Oh, they meet up with the Lakers. That's the Norm Nixon, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Everybody knows who's on that team. The Lakers beat them in 6 again. 1983, they add Moses Malone. And I think they went like 65-17 or 67-15, one of those two ways. And they went into the playoffs, and I think they went like 4-5-4. I mean, the Milwaukee Bucks won 1 game from them, I think, in that playoff. And they go to the finals against the Lakers. They swept the Lakers. The Lakers didn't have James Worthy, the great North Carolina star who was in his rookie season. And the Lakers, I think, had the lead at halftime of all 4 games, but the Sixers ended up winning it. The interesting thing here is, before 1983, a lot of the NBA Finals games were on tape delay. 1983 was a new NBA contract, and a lot of that had to do with Magic, Bird, and of course Dr. J. So they get Dr. J against Magic in the finals, and Dr. J wins in 83. And then the team kind of takes a steady downturn. 1984, one of the biggest upsets in NBA playoff history, when the Sixers go in, they play the Nets. I think the Nets had Michael Ray Richardson at that time, and the Nets upset them in 5 games. And then after that, it was kind of downhill. Moses Malone leaves. They did draft Charles Barkley in 86, I think, 85. And then in 1986, they lost in the conference semifinals in 7 games to Milwaukee at the buzzer. And then they come out in 87, Dr. J's final year, and they lost in a 5th and deciding game in Milwaukee where they got blown out. But I think it's safe to say that outside of the impact that Larry Bird, Magic Johnson had on the NBA, the next guy I would put there was Dr. J. Those 3 guys are what made it so Michael Jordan could be as huge as he ended up being.
Yeah. That's when did he retire, Mike? Did you
1987 was the year he retired because they lost to the Bucks.
So that was the year
he
retired, yeah. So this year was the year he retired. He got to 30,000 points. And I had a question. You talked about David Thompson. Is he the one that actually nominated, spoke on behalf of Michael Jordan? Is that who Michael Jordan chose to induct him into the Hall of Fame?
I'm not sure there, but I know David Thompson was called the Skywalker. He was on that great 1974 NC State team that upset UCLA and won the national championship. I think they beat Marquette. For some reason with Thompson, I don't remember what happened, but he's also one of like six or 7 players to ever score 70 points in an NBA game.
Wow.
I'm trying to remember what happened with Thompson because really his stats dropped off significantly once you got to like 1979, 1980. I mean, his career was pretty much over by 83 or 84. I think,
Yeah.
and what I remember was, I'm not 100% sure on this, so maybe a listener, maybe Lucas will know, but it seems to me like he severely injured his knee at Studio 54. And that's what basically
Oh
ended
no.
his career. And see, I
So he couldn't
remember
maybe.
after the knee injury, I think he might have tore his ACL at Studio 54. I do not know if that is true. I just remember hearing that story. And the reason I remember hearing that story is because he made a comeback attempt in 1985 with the Indiana Pacers, which is why I remember
Oh.
that. And he didn't make it.
Yeah, I guess a guy like him, if he loses his leaping and his, I mean, that was what he was about. He was, they called him the Skywalker, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dr. J, what can you say? Just an amazing, top 10 guy ever, maybe top 5 leaper athlete ever, ever. And so
I think
and the guy,
Dr. J was the greatest in the air, but David Thompson might have been second right behind him. I know Dominic Wilkins, Michael Jordan. For me, Dr. J and David Thompson were the first guys to really play the game above the rim.
right, yeah. Well, and I'm pretty sure I am right on that. I think David Thompson is the one who Michael Jordan chose to induct him. And Jordan looked up to him. I think was more like an idol of Jordan's, maybe when he was in high school or
Well,
something.
their
And so,
games were very similar. It's just that Jordan developed an outside shot. Thompson could shoot the ball from the outside, but that was probably his weakness. But when you're David Thompson and Dr. J, and I mean, when you talk about Dr. J, I mean, he's one of the few guys where there's like 3 iconic moves that everybody knows. And number one, I think, has to be the baseline move in the 1980 NBA Finals, where he drives past Mark Landsberger on the right baseline. He went him for a layup. 7'2" Kareem Abdul-Jabbar crossed in front of him, blocking the route to the basket. And he actually was out of bounds with his right hand, brings it back with his left, and comes out on the other side and makes the shot. And
yeah,
you had to dunk over Bill Walton. It was during, I think, Game 6 of the 77 finals, where after Portland had scored a basket, Dr. J takes off, runs the length of the court with the entire Blazers team defending him. He did like a crossover to blow by multiple defenders, and then he just kind of glided to the hoop. And that was the thing about him. And the sad thing is, I think his best years were probably 72 through 76 in the ABA. That's when he was at the
yeah.
height.
Before,
Yeah, and if you
yeah,
go on YouTube and look up Dr. J in the ABA, you find all this stuff. You find the stuff at Rucker Park where, the old rumor was he could jump up and make change for $1 on top of the backboard. I don't believe that, but they said he could. And the other thing, the
yeah.
most iconic thing about Dr. J is he was in maybe the greatest basketball movie of all time, The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was in it also.
Yeah, Jabbar was in a few of the great ones. I mean, he was in Airplane too, right?
Yeah, but Airplane
Wow.
was actually really a good movie. Now, see, The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh, the thing that makes it so special is it is so stupid that it is entertaining.
Well,
Have you
we'll
ever
probably
seen?
get
You've seen The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh, haven't you, Bobby?
I've heard of it, but I never
Oh,
watched
come
it.
on,
I
Bobby!
have.
How could you never see The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh?
I don't know. I just never did.
Come on, man. I think Debbie Allen, Stockard Channing, and Harry Shearer were in it, but it was basically the Pittsburgh Pythons. All right, and once I tell you this story, you're going to want to go watch the movie immediately. But it was
Yeah,
the
but you
plot.
said it.
The plot of this movie was it was a struggling team in Pittsburgh called the Pythons, who had like a continuous losing streak, lack of talent. They had Moses. I think it was Moses Guthrie. That's who Dr. J played. So that's all they had. And, believing the team needed a miracle, the ball boy, water boy, played by I think James Bond III, but I don't think he's any relation because he's black. And his name was Tyrone in the movie. And he turns to astrology to improve the team's fortunes. And he brings this idea to Mona Mondu, who's Stockard Channing. Now, I know everybody is listening with rapt attention right now, But, Mona, as an astrologer, came up with the perfect concept to take a team composed entirely of players born under the astrological sign of Pisces. And luckily, that was the star of Moses Guthrie, Dr. J. That's what he was too. And, then they have tryouts for this team, and you end up with like a deaf guy, an Indian, a little white guy that can shoot the ball. And then, of course, they make it to the NBA Finals against Kareem's team. But, the astrological sign of Pisces, the year of Pisces, happened to end. Get this. You'll never believe this. It ended. The year of Pisces ended like in the middle of the second quarter. And then they're on their own. And they fall behind by like 30. But then they all rally around Moses and come back to win it all. Now, if that's not a great movie, I don't know what is.
Oh, Mike, I would never have guessed we're talking about fish that save Pittsburgh, but here we are.
Hey, and this is the thing. You also, you had I think Flip Wilson was in the movie. Meadowlark Lemon was in the movie. He was a reverend that played on the team. And also, who was it? The guy that was in Mork and Mindy, Jonathan Winters. Jonathan Winters was in the movie too. So it is really, and then you've got the guys calling the games during the games are like Marv Albert and Chick Hearn. We've got a halftime show by the Spinners. What the hell more could you want in a movie? And the film consultants were like Connie Hawkins and Jerry Tarkanian. I know more about the fish that saved Pittsburgh than most people that ever lived.
You sound like a guy that maybe invested in some of the resale rights of it or something.
Oh, no, because nobody would buy it. How do you get a resale the rights to something nobody wants to see? But I can tell you this, it's almost impossible to find the movie on a DVD. But I've got like 6 copies here. And the first person to send me a message at Grilling Truth on Twitter with their address, I will send you a copy of The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh.
Oh, Mike, that's great. And,
I'm not going to send it to you, though, Bobby, because you've basically mocked the show, and you didn't even see it.
Well, I didn't mock it, but how do you have 6 copies? Like, how'd that happen?
I got a DVD duplicator. I've got like 30,000 DVDs of sporting events, movies, and everything else. I didn't tell Steve Risley because then I'd have to send him my entire collection because he likes movies. Now, Lucas had a question. Okay. Lucas' question is, ask Bobby what he thinks. This is Lucas from Canada, Toronto, Canada. Ask Bobby what he thinks the top moment of the 2010s decade is in sports. I think it has to be the Chicago Cubs winning the World Series, but
2010. So that's 2010 through right now.
Yeah, basically the last decade.
Wow, Lucas, that's a really good question.
Lucas is just hoping you answer what he wants, which is stupid.
Well, the Cubs, if you look at baseball and MLB, Mike, let's together go through maybe the top ones off the major sports. The Cubs, you already mentioned, that would be a great one, breaking that curse and winning that finally, and that was in 2016, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So then what do you think is the top moment for the NBA?
I don't know. Would the Dallas Mavericks beat the Miami Heat with 1 star to 3 stars? I don't think the NBA has had an iconic moment, have they?
Well, let's look at the leading. Has there been any major records? We had some.
Yeah, put it like this. This is the thing. If you bring up the sport and we have to think about it, it doesn't count.
All right. So then in the MLB, so the NFL, has there been any major?
I would say the 28-3 comeback in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl by Brady.
That was huge. The Cubs, NHL, worldwide stuff. Gosh, I don't know.
Yeah. So I think that, wouldn't you say, Bobby, that obviously it would be the Cubs or the Patriots Super Bowl win coming from 28-3 down?
I think that would be 2, just right off the top of our heads.
That's top of our heads. So, Lucas, we're not prepared. And the thing is this, you'll notice, Lucas is one of these Tiger Woods is the greatest moment in sports history thing. So he was hoping you'd say Tiger Woods. But if you notice, Lucas, we didn't even bring golf up. And that was not me, because you asked a question and he went with it. So
I like golf, and Mike, I do. I do like golf and everything else, but I don't get too tied up into Tiger Woods because I feel like you do. I am not a real fan of his. I do respect that he's fought through the injuries to come back to where he's at, but these guys anymore, their way of coming back off of injuries is a little different than the way they came back off of injuries in the day. They've got a lot of advancements in medicine that helps them to come back from injuries, and that's why they look so great when they're 45, because it's not real. So that's a whole nother story, a whole nother topic. But if you think those guys aren't doing steroids in the PGA, then you're crazy.
I think everybody does steroids. I do steroids every day to do this show, Bobby.
Well, I'm going to need to do steroids today after the MLB if they don't start picking up. So.
It'll pick up.
Right.
But what are you bitching about? 2 days ago, you broke the bank. Yesterday, you were a little bit off. Quit whining.
Oh, that's all right. Hey, it's a new day, Mike, and we got to be right with our takes more than we're wrong.
Hey,
sure.
Right now, real quick before I forget to mention this, tomorrow on Survive and Advance at noon on thegruelingtruth.com, or you can find us on Spreaker, thegruelingtruth.com, or you just wait till we share it on Twitter tomorrow at noon. We will have Bobby and hopefully Cole on to talk NBA playoffs, and then we will have the NHL beat writer for The Grueling Truth, Sam McGinnis, on the show to talk NHL. So you guys can check us out at thegruelingtruth.com tomorrow at noon for that. And then, of course, you can hear me and Bobby every day at noon. And yes, Lucas just asked if I asked your question, so he must have been indisposed for a while. But yes, we did, Lucas. And Bobby came up immediately with the 2016 Chicago Cubs.
Yes. And, Mike, we're on every day at 2, not noon. You're on every day at noon.
No, I said we're on every day at noon and 2. Lucas confused
noon
me.
at 2, okay.
He asked me a question. My concentration is broke. But remember, the fish that saved Pittsburgh should have won the Oscar Academy Award in 1979, but it didn't. This is the question, because I think I know the answer to this. But what movie won the Oscar for Best Picture in 1979, Bobby?
I would have no idea, Mike. What do you got for me?
I think it was Deer Hunter.
Oh, you're getting me now. I mean, I've heard of that, but I've never seen that movie either.
You've never seen Deer Hunter? Do you have a TV at your house, Bobby?
Not one that watches that stuff, I guess. I mean, I've watched. I don't know, Mike. I haven't watched a lot of those classic movies, and this is not new that people think I'm weird for that. But it's just the way it is. I don't know. I haven't watched a lot of the good old movies, but maybe I should go back and try, huh?
Lucas said that it was Kramer versus Kramer, which I thought too. But I looked it up, and Lucas, it says 1979 winner Deer Hunter. It just does. I don't know why, because I thought it was Kramer versus Kramer too. So, of course, before I said it and looked like an idiot, then I Googled it just to make sure, and it came up Deer Hunter.
Hey, one last thing about Dr. J. I'm amazed at him when I look at him, how great he looks. How old is he now, Mike?
108. I don't know, but this is the other thing that's interesting about him. Pay-per-view. I think this was in the early 90s. Did you see the one-on-one pay-per-view between him and Kareem? They played one-on-one for money.
Yes, I think I did see parts of that. I remember seeing that, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to bring it up because I didn't know if anybody else knew it happened.
Oh, no. Yeah, I knew that happened. And I thought about this the other day when we were talking about Hank Aaron, how great, because you said, hey, you're at 50 years old, you look better than all your buddies. Well, if you look even half as good as Dr. J and Hank Aaron at 80 or 75 or whatever they are, then you're doing great, because those guys have aged tremendously. And I like, Dr. J, just a classy guy, and Hank Aaron, and those are got to be two of my favorite athletes of all time.
Yeah, definitely. I loved Dr. J when I was little. Dr. J and Walt Clyde Frazier. But all right, we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up. You want to tell everybody about the Handicappers Guide, Bobby?
Sure. It's the handicapping guide, Mike. thehandicappingguide.com is where you can find. Yeah. You can find THG. You can find if you're a horse race bettor, then I think this would be something that you would definitely enjoy having, because he has a number system, a ranking system based on his years of handicapping. He gets them right out of the racing form, and just so it's the handicap, the factors that go into his final numbers are right from the form. So it's something. It takes that and condenses it down to a ranking, and he doesn't come up with the favorites all the time. It's very spread out, and the idea is he gives you a top 4 in every race, and then from there you can kind of eliminate half the field or more, and then work your bets around those top 4. And that's kind of what his overall premise is. And what he's done is he's been able to develop a program that will pop those numbers out at any 4, 5, 6 tracks that you can. So if you're a guy that likes to bet multiple races, you're on TVG, you're on your computer, you don't have a whole lot of time to look at every race, but you like the action, he's done that for you. And he'll give you the top 4 in every race from 4, 5, 6 different tracks. And then if you're a guy that you could purchase that, and it's not very expensive, maybe $10 for 4 tracks or something. And if you just like your hometown track, I think you can get that for, I don't know, maybe $10 a month, just for one track a month. You're talking like what, $1, 30 cents a day or something. I mean, I am not 100% sure on the numbers, but it's very affordable. And like if you're just a West Coast guy in Santa Anita or Del Mar or whatever, he'll every day deliver it to your email box, and he does a great job. And I've known the family for a long time. His name is Phil Rankin, and you can find him on Twitter as well. But the Handicapping Guide is his website, and he's sponsor of thegruelingtruth.com, and he's the father of his son Chad, who does all my computer work, for my website. So good people, good family, and Chad was also a good baseball pitcher back in his day, Mike. He pitched and college ball too at Cal State LA. So good stuff, and thank you for bringing him up.
All right, guys, and remember, you can get the Sheridan Report for $10 a day or $50 per month by going to thesheridanreport.com. You can follow Bobby Sheridan at Sheridan Report. You can follow The Grueling Truth at Grueling Truth. Hell, you can follow Lucas Weiss at Weiss Sports. We'll even give Lucas a plug. You can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Bobby Sheridan, I'm Mike Goodpastor. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.